type of cell, and all of the organisms that fall in the domain eukarya have eukaryotic cells. They're made of eukaryotic cells. This other group, prokaryotes, they're a different type of cell. And they're a little bit more simple than the eukaryotic cells. And so we'll see that today in the notes. So we've got these two major different cell types, two major classifications of cells. Within those major classifications, we can break it down even further into more specific types of cells. But this word at least should hopefully be relatively familiar to you. So we're going to talk about what the difference between these two types of cells are. Now what I'm going to give you right now is an analogy. Okay? So what's an analogy? What does that mean, Olivia?
Like something that relates to like something that we're more like known.
Okay, so relating something to something that you know something about already.
Yeah.
So I'm going to relate these cell types, that are things that maybe you don't know a lot about, to something that you do know about, which is houses. Okay? And so here are my analogies. My first analogy is that a prokaryote is like a one-room shack. It's pretty small, and it might be on skis. I don't know why this is on skis. This is kind of weird. There's a doghouse attached to it. Okay? So that's a prokaryote, and a eukaryote is like this big, beautiful mansion. Okay? And so that's my analogy. All right? So this they're like these things. They aren't these things. Yeah.
This is on top of these. Is that supposed to be George Washington's house?
I don't know.
It looks like
It's supposed to be clip art from the internet. I don't know. Okay, so prokaryotes. Let me lay this out here for you. Prokaryotes are these like a one-room shack. They're these very small, simple cells. Okay, so it's like a one-room shack. So imagine that this is where you live. You live in this little one-room shack on skis, and it's awesome if you live in the snow because it's like having a mobile home. So you get home, right? And it's been a long day at school, and you open your front door, and you take a step in, and you're like already in the middle of your house. It's kind of cool, right? Because it's pretty small. So you walk in, you like drop your backpack on the floor, because that's what you do, right? You're tired, you don't want to do anything, and you're like, man, I have so much biology homework I need to do, but I'm just gonna lay down. And it's kind of cool because like your bed's right there, so you can just lay right down. Because you that's all you do, right? Is sleep and eat and go to school. So if you're just gonna live in a one-room shack, you want to have a nice big bed. So it takes up your entire house. So you're laying there and you're thinking to yourself, man, I should really start my biology homework. But I'm hungry. So what's nice about a one-room shack is that like you can just lean over here and you've got a little cupboard down here and you open up your cupboard and oh hey, popcorn. So you open up your popcorn and here's your microwave back here. It's all within reaching distance. It's kind of nice, right? You pop open the door, stick in the popcorn, slam the door, and then now it's going. And you're thinking to yourself, man, I should really do my biology homework. But I want to watch TV. And so you just sit up and you hit and then you're sitting in there and then you're watching TV. Right? And so, yeah, this is pretty cool, right? It's a good deal, right? And so now you're watching TV. Oh, your popcorn's done now, so you get your popcorn. Now you're eating your popcorn. You're like, I should really start my homework.
Been thinking about it this much.
Notice you haven't started your homework yet. Okay, and now you've eaten all this popcorn, so now what's going to happen?
You're gonna take a shower.
You have to wash your hands.
No, your popcorn is really salty, so it makes you what?
Thirsty.
Right? So now you're thirsty. So you're like, okay, well, I could do my health homework, or I could drink Coke. And so you come over here and you open up your fridge, and you got like a little mini fridge over here. So you open it up, you grab your Coke, right? You're drinking your Coke and you eat your popcorn. You're watching your TV, right? Okay, and then all of a sudden, now the Coke has hit your body, and now what do you need to do?
You're tired.
It's the restroom.
Now you need to go pee, right? You gotta get rid of waste.
Uh-oh.
But it's awesome
But it's okay.
because you just have to kind of turn a little. Ladies, you might actually have to get out of bed, but it's right there. It's all right there. It's all within reaching distance. It's awesome, right?
I don't know if I put stuff next to my toilet.
Okay. So so it's all right there. Okay? It's all within reaching distance. This is your prokaryotic cell. It's very small, but it has everything you need to live, right? You got food, you got something to drink, you got TV, you've got homework you need to do, and you've got a place to put your waste, even though it's right next to your bed.
That's kind of nasty.
But you can do it, right? It's not in your bed, it's next to your bed. Okay? Okay? So that's kind of what a prokaryotic cell is like. It's all right there. Everything you need to live is right there. But it might prokaryotic cell is a little bit different. It's a little bit more complicated. This big mansion's got all kinds of different rooms in it, right? And each room has a specific function. And that's what a eukaryotic cell has. So now you've got your eukaryotic, your big mansion. So you get home and you open like these big wide double doors, right? And you just like drop your backpack on the ground and the butler comes and picks it up for you. Right? And you walk in, it's like all marble, there's big columns, and there's like the double stairway. Right? So you come in and you're like, man, I'm hungry. And so you walk and you go like through the dining room, and you know that dining room that's got like the table that seats 18 people? And you're like walking by the table and you're like, we have never had 18 people in our house before. Why do we have a big dining room table? But whatever. And so you keep on walking and you go through the kitchen and you go into the kitchen. There's like all these chefs and they're like cooking badly and you're like, yo, I would like some macaroni and cheese and a Sprite. And somebody's like, yes sir, right away sir. So you keep on walking, you go through the kitchen, and then you go by like, there's like the little guest bathroom, you know, the guest bathroom that like nobody ever uses, and it's still got the soap that's like wrapped up in a piece of paper. So you go by the guest bathroom, you're like, I can't use that, Mom will get mad at me. And so you keep on walking, and then you go up the stairs, and you go up the right-hand staircase, right? You can go up the right-hand staircase, and as you're walking up the staircase, the dog comes running by. And then you get up to the top of the stairs, and you start walking down the hall. So you walk down the hall, you walk by your brother's room, so you kick his door in. And so you keep on walking, and you go by the study, and you look in the study, and there's nobody in there, because who studies, really? Right? But there's a computer, and there's all kinds of books, and you're like, what are books? So you keep on going, and you walk by your sister's room, and you like bang on her door just to annoy her, because that's what you do. And you keep on walking, and you get to your room, and now in your room you got your computer, and so you sit down at your computer, and you go on the Facebook and the Twitter and all of those things, right? And you send out all your Instagrams to your friends, saying, hey, come on over and let's play video games.
That's not
So,
either.
5 minutes later, all your friends show up, they're knocking on the door, and you're like, all right, come on, guys, let's go downstairs. And you go down. There's like this little weird hallway off the side of the kitchen, and it goes downstairs. And downstairs is like this basement, and it's the game room, right? And you got like a bowling alley, and you've got the big old screen right there hooked up to your new PlayStation 4, right? Yes. So you guys are all down there, you're plopped on the couch, and you're like, you got your remote control and you're playing, right? And then the butler comes in and he's like, you want macaroni and cheese, sir? And he gives you your macaroni and cheese. And you're sitting there, you're eating your macaroni and cheese, and you're playing with your controller, and you got your soda over here, and you're still playing with the controller, and you're like, I gotta pee. This is why wireless controllers were invented. And you've got a bathroom down there in the game room, right? Okay, and you're still playing. And it's okay with your butt. Okay, and then you come back. So now, in this big mansion, I've got all these different rooms. Okay, all these different rooms. Wash your hands, guys. Okay. Even hand sanitizer, right? Okay. So eukaryotes got all these different rooms. Okay? All these different organelles. Each organelle has a very specific function. Just like each room in the mansion has a very specific function. Okay? In one room, you make the food. In the other room, you eat the food. In a different room, you get rid of the food after it's gone through your body, right? So that's what a eukaryote is like. You can live, right? You can live a little bit better than a prokaryote. Both of these things provide everything you need to survive. One of them, maybe a little bit better than the other. Okay, so that's kind of our analogy for these two things. One room shack versus a mansion. So here, there are actually notes I need you to take today.
What was expecting that?
It's not just the Mr. Russo show today. So prokaryotic cell on the left. Remember, this is our analogy. The analogy is the one room shack. I've gotten this before where I ask for an example of a prokaryotic cell, and somebody writes down, it's a one room shack. No, a one room shack is not a cell. Okay, that's an analogy. So I kind of laugh at that, and then I start to cry because you guys confuse examples and analogies, and then I think that's not my fault. That's the English teacher, and I just blame them. Prokaryotes have no organelles. Okay, these are those rooms with the specialized functions. Prokaryotes don't have this, so there's no organelles. They also don't have a nucleus. Nucleus is a very specific type of organelle, so not one of those either. Now, in eukaryotes, the nucleus is where the DNA is found. These guys still have DNA, because remember, they're alive, and all living things have to have DNA. But it just kind of floats around wherever it wants to go. They also are very small. Now, obviously, most cells are very small, because you can't see them with the naked eye. But these guys are the smallest of the small. put one next to a eukaryote, it will always be smaller. They also can only be single-celled organisms. You will never find a multicellular prokaryote. You only ever be one cell big. Can you guys think of an actual example of an organism that is prokaryotic? Amoebas are actually eukaryotes.
What?
They're single-celled, but they're eukaryotes. Prokaryotic cell. It's a prokaryotic organism. Remember this that I just did up here? Germs or bacteria.
Bacteria.
Okay, so bacteria are prokaryotes. So our eukaryotes, on the other hand, a little bit more specific or complex. So on the left, put eukaryotes. These are our big mansion. Remember, that's our analogy. And each of those rooms in our mansion represents an organelle. So these guys have organelles. Each organelle has a specific function that it has to accomplish. It does have a nucleus. That's where the DNA is. These guys tend to be bigger. It doesn't mean that, they're enormous. But they're bigger than prokaryotic cells. They kind of have to be. They have all these organelles and stuff in them. So they do tend to be bigger. And they can be multicellular organisms. They can be single-celled, but they can also make up multicellular organisms, like us, for example. So we have, several trillion cells in our bodies. We're eukaryotes. An easy way to remember this, think of eukaryotic cells. Why do you carry eukaryotes? You are a eukaryotic organism. So are all plants, animals, fungi, and protists. So remember, the domain eukarya, eukaryota, these are the kingdoms in that domain. Plantae, Animalia, fungi, protista. So those are all examples of eukaryotic organisms. In fungi and protista and plants we can find, and animals, all of those we can actually find single-celled organisms. But mostly we're finding those categories. Now there's one last thing I want to touch on that tends to come up when we talk about these small cell-like things. And we're going to discuss this a lot more in detail later on. But viruses, what about viruses? On the left, put viruses. And what a virus is simply a bundle of DNA surrounded by a shell made out of protein. That's all it is. And that picture over there is actually one type of virus. Looks like that. Looks like that little spaceship there. Yes, and what is them? So those little legs are kind of what it uses to sort of land on the cell. And then go onto it and then inject its DNA. So there's no organelles, there's no membrane, there's no nucleus, it doesn't maintain any kind of homeostasis, doesn't eat anything from metabolism, it's just a packet of DNA. It can't even reproduce on its own. The only way that this virus has any semblance of being alive is when it infects a host. Okay, so they're only alive when they invade another cell. That is how they reproduce. The virus hooks onto a cell, injects its DNA into that cell essentially becomes a little virus-making factory. That cell makes more of the virus. This virus itself doesn't actually replicate itself. It makes the cell do it for it. Okay.
When I looked at the picture of the painting, it kind of reminded me of one of the episodes.
Jimmy Neutron, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a whole thing about that last period. Let's not get into it right now because it's not really relevant. Yeah.
So could scientists make their own virus?
What scientists do is we actually can take the DNA out of this virus and insert different DNA into it. And we can use